Zooming in on music. Good afternoon. We are speaking today with Maestro Iván Fischer, one of the most outstanding conductors of our times. But Ivan is much more than just a conductor. He's also a father for his orchestra. He's a composer. He's, in my opinion, a great thinker, a wonderful humanistic person, and an inventor. So, and we are going to speak today about music, obviously.
Which is a wonderful subject. all this, yes.
For many people in this world, music goes together with very important personal memories. So for me, for example, I've been married twice, so I'm married now for the second time, and somehow the relationship with both my wives has very much been interconnected with music. I proposed to my first wife after hearing Beethoven Piano Concerto, and I proposed to my second wife in a period when we were playing Tosca, and it was very emotional. So I was wondering, do you have like key memories connected with music that affected your later life?
It's interesting that you mentioned this because I'm also only living together with musicians. I never had a partner, wife, anybody who is not a musician, and I even wonder if it's possible because we see music as an expression of the soul, and when you are a musician and you are married with a musician or you fall in love with a musician, I think music helps the communication. Of course, you can talk, and talking is fine, but when you make music, you understand a deeper personality of the other person, something deeper, which brings you closer together. And I think it's natural that two musicians find each other easier. We can communicate better to each other. But your question was something different about music early, isn't it?
Yeah, it was about, is there something, are there like, it's a very special moments in your life which really stick out, musical memories, which really had a big impact on your life?
This is very interesting that you mentioned this because strangely, I have an opposite problem. That I come from a musical family, and it happens very often to people who come from a musical family, that music is given, that there is no other choice. So like a son of for example, a gypsy violinists usually have gypsy violinist sons. And there is no other option. There is even sometimes no other toy in the family to play with. There is only the violin. And I had the same feeling.
Maybe I should have asked, is there any special memory which is not connected to music?
Yes, exactly. Now, very good question. Because when you come from a musical family, it's decided for you. And I don't have this privilege to say that, when I was 8 years old, I fell in love with music when I heard this or that, because it was there. I mean, imagine around the dinner table, the usual discussion in our family was if Furtwängler or Klemperer was better in a certain symphony, of understanding the Schubert C major symphony, and why Furtwängler is freer with tempos there than Klemperer. So this was the family life. So I come from this decided path. And within that, I have to search a little more than other people, which were the decisive memories, which somehow struck me as very deep musical impulses, but I can find a few.
Is there any particular person or personality in life which had a big influence on you? As if I may say, you have been very important for me and for me as a musician, and I obviously I admire a lot you in many ways, but also your way of thinking has influenced me a great deal. You seem to find different paths than most people I know, and I find it really fascinating.
Well, I had a number of people who influenced me very strongly musically. I must say that a few soloists I met, like being a very young conductor, you meet soloists, and they were usually inspiring people. For me, especially, I remember being like 25, 26 years old, when I met a few of the older generation, and sometimes they made music in an eye-opening way. Singers, for example. I remember I was very young, and then I had Peter Pierce. Now, Peter Pierce, who was the partner of Benjamin Britten, and sang a piece by Britten, actually, Les Illuminations, when I was a beginner. This was like an eye-opening experience, what one can do with singing, how one can communicate, the role of the text, the colors, the poetry, what one can put into singing. Peter Pierce was an incredible experience. But there were a few others, not even the most well-known people. In England, I met pianist Sir Clifford Curzon, who played wonderfully, a fantastic pianist, and a few other soloists like this. Among the conductors, of course, Leonard Bernstein was an important person for me. I was a student when I visited his Mahler cycle in Vienna and his recordings there. He made films of these filmed concerts of the symphonies by Mahler, the Vienna Philharmonic, who behaved terribly, by the way, in those sessions. I mean, there was a certain fight, like Bernstein wanted to do something which was fighting against the resistance there. But of course, they played ultimately very well. But there was this little bitter something. And Bernstein, then, of course, my whole complicated but important relationship with Nikolaus Harnoncourt was important, and a few others.
In what way was your relationship with Nikolaus Harnoncourt complicated? Because I mean, he's also one of my heroes. But I can understand that people have ambivalence in their relationship with him. But what was the ambivalence in your relationship?
At the time, early music was new, and we were more strict about being historically informed. For example, his choice of singers was sometimes not right, because we didn't like somebody with a huge vibrato, for example, but he was looking for a strong personality or a certain character, and he didn't mind. There were many disagreements. I remember there was one famous occasion when we, the students, we didn't agree when he said that one single tone cannot be beautiful. He said that at one tone means only something in relation to another one.
Yeah.
One note, and one alone doesn't mean anything. It cannot be beautiful. And we, the students, said that we disagree, that we think that you can play one note beautifully. And he said, prove it. And then I happened to be the one. And I had to take, I think, a viola da gamba, but it could be any instrument. And I was sitting in the middle of the room, and all the students and Harnoncourt around me, and was dead silence. And now Nikki said, okay, now play one note beautifully. It's not possible. And I took this instrument and I put all my heart in this, fantastic opportunity, and then play this one note with a lot of feeling and very beautifully. It probably had a little swell on it. And immediately Harnoncourt interrupted. So, no, Mr. Fischer, now you are actually you're telling us a whole story. I wanted you to play one note, not a whole story. So these were the kind of discussions we had.
Yeah. But he was certainly a very, very strong personality and very influential for. It's hard to imagine that in like when he started his career, that he found so much resistance. It was almost policy. It was you were either for Harnoncourt or you were against. It was like, especially in Vienna, I think it's a matter of life and death.
I think the idea that music means something, music is a tool of communication. This was eye-opening. It was wonderful. That music is not just a nice something to listen to, but it means something which you should understand with your mind or soul, but it should send you a message. And this idea was fantastic, and it is fantastic. And I think Harnoncourt was one of the greatest innovators of music, and brought a fantastic level of understanding to this, and absolutely changed the attitude of a whole generation, including probably both of us. I mean, I'm sure you picked up many things from his thinking too.
Yeah, I'm sure we all did. But I find it interesting, because if I would be describing you and what you do, I would also say that you are a wonderful and very special communicator. I remember this one incident when we were preparing Beethoven's 7th Symphony. It was many years ago, actually, like 15 years ago or something. And you told the public, before we played the last movement, you told the public, this is the rock music of the 19th century. And what happened was really amazing, because not only the audience felt that we were actually playing rock music of the 19th century, but the whole orchestra felt it. And that's quite something. It was a lunch concert. It was like relaxed, and often lunch concerts are a little more laid back, but the orchestra played with such fire as never before. And it's just those few words, how you said it, and what it meant to the musicians and to the public, created a very special atmosphere. I shall never forget it. You probably don't remember it, because for you it's normal. But for me, that was like a complete eye-opener, that if we find the right words, then we can tell something which is really important, and we can bring it together. And I think that's probably in times such as today, that's hopefully still important.
Yes, well, I can tell you two sources of this. One is certainly Harnoncourt, who made me realize in a very clear way that to understand music, it's important to understand the age it was written, because then you know you know more what it felt like for the people who heard it then the first time, what was new, what was shocking, what was this or that. And for example, this idea that the rhythmical repetition was something extremely new, and this almost aggressively repeated sforzatos, these accents, were new for the time, then it becomes clear that it's the rock music of the 19th century. It's repetitive music of 19th century. But there was another, when you say that with a few words one can create an atmosphere for which changes the whole music making. There I want to name another source, which is when I started to compose, then I realized a very simple thing. You write your piece, it's on the paper, and then you have the chance to write one or two words above it, like allegro moderato, or whatever it is. You can write cantabile, or 1, 2, 3 words which help the performer. And then suddenly I realized that I have to concentrate on the essence to find these 1 or 2 or 3 words, because I cannot write a whole story. I cannot write an essay how this piece should be performed. I have the chance to write there con moto, which means moving, or andante, walking, allegro, which happily, very, very condensed, short phrasing. And then I realized that actually as a conductor, I have to do the same. I have to find the key word, which is the most important word for the orchestra. And instead of telling a whole story, if I just say with fire, which is a usual con fuoco, many composers write that one idea should give something to the orchestra which is more important than long sentences. So the composing and this writing with these 1 or 2 words helped my conducting technique.
Yeah. And but what I find really fascinating and maybe also troubling at this point in our lives is now that the communication with the public is well certainly disturbed or for a great part interrupted. I mean, like in America, the whole cultural life has been shut down, and we go from one shutdown to the next, and we try and keep it going. So how are we going to continue to engage not only the musicians, because we'll find ways, we can play chamber music, we can do small things, but how are we going to continue to communicate with our public? It's not only because it's a pandemic now, of course, and this COVID thing is terrible, but also because it seems like people are going more and more introvert, or maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but it feels like everybody's more and more sucked in by the smartphones and by their computers. I'm also guilty for that. And it seems like we are shutting ourselves off more and more. So how are we going to continue to engage our public? What means do we have?
I think this is a very serious problem now, and I'm not sure if I know the answer. I can only share a few thoughts which I have. One is that this long lockdown, so that this life without the usual concerts, with the full hall, this experience that we have 2,000 people in the hall and all the seats are occupied, this was normal for us. And now it is not there. I think this is a very serious change, which will be very difficult to bring back. there are a few optimistic people who say that once it's over, people will come back to the concert hall. It's possible. That's why I say I don't know. I hope they will come back, but I can also imagine that they get used to this lifestyle without the public concerts. They get used to it, that they have enough music from the computer's screen. They don't need to go out and have this dangerous situation of viruses flying around in in the crowd. So I'm not so sure that it will simply get back to normal. And I can also imagine that it's like a sign or like a final drop which actually gave the final blow to an already problematic situation, that the whole music life as it was already problematic, and this was the final blow. I can also imagine, because I think the music life was from many aspects problematic. And I mean, if you agree, we can talk about that. What were the problems?
Yeah, yes, certainly. I think that's interesting to hear, because I have these discussions also with my wife at home. She's not a musician, and it's working well. Thank you. but I tend to be more careful, at least, and a little bit wary of our situation. Are people really will they, once they're allowed to, will they want to crowd together again next to one another and feel the proximity of this and sort of these little irritations that you get in the public when you can just sit down comfortably at home and put on a DVD and have a beautiful stereo and but I mean, this is not a new discussion. Obviously, when the radio was invented, people also thought music's gonna die because of the radio, and the opposite happened. So although I'm wary and I am also a little anxious, I think that we can reinvent music. I'm sure we can do it, but we need people like you who are creative and who invent things, not only masks with ears, but other things. Maybe we have to include more humor. Maybe we have to include more engagement. There is this whole whole tendency now in our times towards amateurs, because the technical the machines that we are using are more and more skillful, so that even complete amateurs can be good at making photos or making a video or a garage band, you know, mixing their own stuff and with auto-tune, suddenly they by miracle they start singing in tune, and they have a drum machine, and you have all this creativity which is inspired by technical development. But the question is where does that leave creative people like you? Where is your place in that? And can you see a place in that? Or shall we just revert what we have always been doing and trust Marijn, because my wife, because Marijn says, yeah, but once I can go, music is so important for me. I need the experiences. For me, it's really so maybe us musicians, we are a little cynical and we underestimate the effect that we have on our public. Maybe, I hope so.
Well, this effect on the public, I think this is the crucial question. Because let's look at it with a little kind of honesty, so that we don't hide anything. Our music life before this pandemic was a very rich, many concerts, many people listening to music, so it worked well, like an oiled machine. But if you look at it was it really the love of music which kept it alive, or other things? I think yes and no, because, for example, there were other aspects, and I name maybe, I would say, three. One aspect is that in many cities, going to a concert was not only for the love of music, but also for something social. That you go to this concert, you belong to this part of the society who go to concerts. Especially in America, you could see it very clearly, that going to a concert is like being a member of a club. You go there, you see there regularly the same people, and it's a social need. So there is this social need of the audience. I want to emphasize, when I criticize it, I don't exclude the real music lovers. They do exist, but these people also exist who see the social benefits of a concert. Then there is the second one, is the need of orchestras to live. And again, I don't question that there are many people in orchestras who love music and do it as an art, but there is another need, that they get a salary and it's a job. Now, it's an important driving force because the orchestra wants to stay alive. There are families who are financed by this. So this whole combination of subsidy flowing in, audiences filling the hall, satisfies the need of an orchestra to simply stay alive and be able to do their job. So next to the love of music, there is also the need to have the salary. And I think there is a third need, which I would say the ego satisfaction of the floating part of this profession, the conductors, the soloists, and the whole people who service this, like the managements, the agencies, who actually serve one thing, that this person who plays the Mendelssohn violin concerto 100 times every year plays it the 101st one time. So, I mean, it's a kind of career that people want to prove they are better soloists or conductors than the other one. So there's a kind of competition going on, which is also a need. Now these three groups, the audience fulfilling a social need, the orchestra wanting to keep the salary, the soloists and the conductors feeding their ego, these three groups worked perfectly together. But now that suddenly there is a blow and the audience is afraid of the virus, the whole thing collapses, and it's actually artificially kept alive now. The subsidy still flows in, so keeps the musician's salary. There is a bit of attempt of streaming concerts to give something to the audiences, and where the soloists are now sitting at home and maybe giving home concerts or whatever they do. But the whole thing is shaking. And now your question of how will it come back, one can phrase it in two different ways. Will this system be simply restored, or what will happen to the genuine love of music, the genuine musicians who can't live without making music, and the people who really want to experience music? And if we think about this second question, then I think probably the future will go back to smaller audiences, more vulnerable lives for musicians, less security, So there will be again the troubadours, or the, you know, the menestrels, or I don't know what one can call them, the people who make music for those who listen to music. And the system which surrounded them, the safe job, the big club, the ego stars, this might not come back, I think.
Well, I think you are too pessimistic. I think, or maybe optimistic in a way, because obviously a lot of it was exaggerated, maybe, and also quite decadent. I felt that, you know, that sometimes whole orchestras being shipped from one continent to another, where they have perfectly good orchestras who could also play that music. I found it sometimes quite disturbing. So but I think there is still that desire for beauty and for a rich musical experience will survive, I'm sure. And the other things, yeah, they've always been like that. I mean, when they listened to Mozart operas, then people were dining, and they were only half listening to the pieces. They were not like audiences today who were sitting still and very like almost like going to church. It was also a happening. And also when the descriptions of when Bach's music, church services, they were much more theatrical in Bach's time. A sermon was a happening. People were really excited about it. They didn't even hear what the priest was saying. It was just theater. And I don't think we should underestimate the audience's desire for spectacle and for things that make a difference, that make a little dent in their otherwise, well, a little monotonous lives, maybe, or to it's like if you ask the average Dutch person about what is really important for you in life, then they usually start talking about their holidays or about their hobbies. They very seldom they will speak about their professions. It will be about very special experiences, and I feel and I hope that we will be able to recreate special experiences in the future, but maybe the system will have to cool down quite a lot. That in that sense, I think you're right.
But I think what you said is very important, that it's not only the love of music which keeps music alive, but these other aspects around it. I completely agree. But if you look back, for example, in the changes of the French Revolution, before that, there was music making in aristocratic courts or around kings. And there were also other aspects, the whole desire to have a bigger Hofkapelle than the next door king. So I understand there were other things, and probably people wanted to make a good living then too. So it's there. What I am saying is that if a change happens, this surrounding system can collapse.
Yeah.
Like around 1800, the aristocratic courts collapsed. But music somehow survived. For example, new things emerged, in the early 19th century, the phenomenon soloist. You know, as we know a soloist, the first two were Paganini and Liszt. I read a wonderful review about Liszt. I think it was in St. Petersburg, where this critic says that how arrogant this man is, that he sets up a podium in the middle of a room and he plays the piano all evening alone. What a kind of a
terrible
arrogance, you know? And this, because nobody ever did this, soloist didn't exist before. And Paganini did the same. I also read that Paganini's the violin concertos with the orchestras, they have very long introduction without the soloist. And finally, I understood why, because Paganini very often performed them in Italian theaters, and the orchestra was sitting in the pit. They played the introduction, and before the soloist appeared, the curtain opened, and Paganini was standing alone on the stage, playing the violin concerto with the orchestra in the orchestra pit. So this completely new ritual emerged then, but the old one, the aristocratic court, was gone. Now I can imagine that in our time, this ritual what we had with the 2,000 subscribers, with the safe subsidy orchestras, with the traveling, this group, that this will not necessarily continue in the old form, but something new will emerge. And it's interesting to see what can emerge, what can be the future ritual around music.
Yeah. There have been obviously many key moments in music history when such big changes occurred. For example, after the Wiener Congress after the Napoleonic Wars, then in Austria life was so restricted, and there was very repressive policy, and there were spies everywhere, and people retreated to their homes and they started playing chamber music. And so that's a typical and that was the creation of Schubert and Brahms. They came from there, from the fact that people sat at home, that they didn't go out anymore, and they started playing music together, the arrangements of Beethoven symphonies and I don't know, everything and so I think music is such an important part in people's lives, even if it may change, and it probably will change. I think you're right, that something will definitely happen. I'm sure. But the big challenge is, and the big question is, can we anticipate it? What will happen? I mean, how can we use these beautiful concert halls that we have? Maybe in a different way. How are orchestras going to function? I think you have a great example how your orchestra, the Budapest Festival Orchestra, works. That when the lockdown came, it switched completely, and you did these chamber music things, and so maybe we have to think along those lines. And the other aspect, I think, which should not be underestimated, is the social, the cohesion. What happens if people listen to music together, if they experience music together, and so maybe we have to just reinvent concerts. Maybe. And I think you have done already many inventions in that field. I remember you telling me about these midnight concerts for young people, and things like that, or when you suddenly have your orchestra singing, or when you how the way you staged your Zauberflöte, or how your compositions are made, how this theatrical aspects, or that we have played this Brahms concerto, and you started playing the Alphorn before. That I think that is not just different in the sense, it's not different for the sake of being different. I think it shows that there are different paths. And I'm sure that you will be one of the people who will find different paths.
Well, first of all, Michael, I think we agree that music is very important for people. So that's what you said, and I completely agree. And we also agree that if things change, then new forms will emerge, and these new forms is the interesting thing to talk about. Now, some of these innovations, they always come out of a practical situation. They are not really concepts, like, for example, when the idea comes how to make concerts for young people, in my mind, what do they need, what kind of time of the day, what room, what circumstances, and then it comes. So I think the innovations will naturally come not from me only, but from many people. They will emerge. Interesting thing is to find out what do people need to hear and make music nowadays. How does our life change? For example, let me say one thing, or a few things. One is the fear. People are afraid of the virus now. Now, I don't think this fear will go. If you get a vaccine, some people will still be afraid, maybe from the next virus or whatever. So there is the fear of this crowd. And how to reduce that fear would be important to talk about. I don't personally like this solution of sitting 3 or 4 chairs away from each other, because it's so miserable to see the hall for 2,000 seats where there are 300 people scattered. It's terrible.
But have you, I thought the same as you until I went to a concert myself. You probably don't go to many concerts, and I don't know if you have been to one of these concerts.
Once I went to such a concert.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. I went. My orchestra was playing. It was a interesting program with a really interesting young conductor, and there was a Tchaikovsky piano concerto and the modern piece. And then the concert stopped, and then the public left, and then a bunch of public came back, and they listened to that modern piece again, and they played Sibelius' Second Symphony, which I'm ashamed to admit I had never heard in concert before. I had played it, but I heard it, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved having the space. I loved not having to worry if the person next to me didn't like my deodorant, or that we touched each other. You don't know where to put your elbow, and I sat there with a friend, and we had a wonderful time. The problem is obviously.
Well, I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
But it will shake the system.
Yeah.
Because, for example, economically, how do you finance? I mean, you're used to have an income of 2,000 people. Now you have an income of 300. It shakes the whole system. But it could have advantages. People cough less. I understand what you say. Room around you, nice. Okay, maybe this is not the worst part of the fear, but there might be other things, like, what about the orchestras? The orchestras are close to each other. This idea of sitting far away, it makes hearing each other even worse. I don't really think that this is the future.
No,
so
I hope not.
That's obviously not going to stay long. Now, however, what can stay is that people will get a taste of why always so 120 musicians is too many. That maybe people will simply prefer the feeling of 30, 40 musicians to 90 or 100. So this idea that a symphony orchestra has to be exactly like the score of Richard Strauss, this somehow got it was a phenomenon of the 20th century and early 21st century, and now it's over, and maybe we need musical groups or families which are either smaller, so there will be more chamber orchestras and less big symphony orchestras, or a little more like our experiment in Budapest, which I call a pool of musicians, And this idea of the pool of musicians is that you have 80 or 90 or 100 musicians, but they play in many different combinations. And then you don't have so many people playing together. It's usually more fun and more repertoire variety. We play a lot of Baroque music on early instruments, uh, ensembles for contemporary music, folk music, all kinds of things. But the feeling of coming all together is not the norm, but a special festive occasion.
Yeah. Yeah, I can certainly underwrite one of the things that you said, because in the concert series that I organize in Amsterdam, as you know, in the IJsselon, we have a smaller stage and we don't have such big funds, but we try to create things which are still theatrical and special and entertaining and sometimes funny, and some of the most beautiful memories I have are like little operas, like your piece that we did, but also, for example, our version of Tannhäuser, which only takes an hour and a half, and it only takes 11 musicians and 5 singers, and it's absolutely lovely. And I'm not saying that to boast or anything, but I think that you're right, that there will be demand for maybe for
For
smaller things.
smaller.
And also I just heard recently that this version that we made will be edited, so maybe more people, there seems to be with publishers, there seems to be an interest in chamber opera, which was always like I mean, something for poor people, and suddenly there seems to be a genuine interest for recreating works which are actually too large to play now, and to still make them sound, or these arrangements of the Mahler symphonies, and so maybe this is a path that we are going to take, and
Well,
yeah, maybe.
the same thing happened, when Schoenberg did many transcriptions of the big pieces, like works by Mahler, for example, simply in order to play it in a small group of people in a home. And similarly, now people will reinvent the idea of the smaller groups making music, if it's operas or reduced orchestrations. There will be a variety of forms, but I think it will gradually affect the contractual situations, how orchestras work. Because at the moment, an orchestra rigidly works with the system of approximately 110 jobs, 110 musicians, always playing together, more or less together, always, I mean, more or less always together. What we experiment with is this pool of musicians where we go out of the concert hall. So we allocate weeks, what we call community weeks, and create small groups. They go to schools, to hospitals, to old people's homes, all kinds of concert forms. I developed, for example, a type of concert for autistic children. There are many different things one can do for the community. But if you treat your orchestra as a pool of musicians, then you can serve the community in a variety of ways. You don't simply sit on your podium and wait for the 2,000 people to come there, because I think they will not come. They might come, but maybe half of them will come. We don't know, because there is fear and there is this change of taste. But I think the future is in a flexible organization, a pool who can do different things. And this is my suggestion to all orchestra leaders all over the world, to first of all reform their rules and made groups of the orchestra serving the community.
I think that's certainly a very beautiful thing to say, and it's really important that we are actually serving. We are serving the community. We are serving the public. Sometimes I feel like I see some colleagues who are very proud of what they're doing, and they're very like a little bit like, yeah, but we are special. There was an incident with many years ago with a former colleague, and there was some hold up at the airport, and they were being very thorough with checking all the instruments and cases, and one of our female colleagues, she was famously bad-tempered. She said to the civil servant who was checking her, and said, "Don't you know who we are?" and I find that very typical. Obviously, it's very funny because that person had no idea who we are, and he didn't care. He was just doing his job. But
No, I agree, but I have to say that what you did in the Ice Salon is a wonderful thing. Wonderful. More people should do this because what you did, you create a kind of art form where there is an audience who come with a curiosity for what is going to happen today. That there is this openness of, you usually speak to the public, you include many modern things, very many new things, and you make people curious. And this is wonderful because, you see, the question is of, I don't want to be too long, but there is the question of what and how. I think the whole music life, generally all over the world, became a question of how. Like, what we play is always the same. We always play the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, and we always play the Beethoven Seventh Symphony. It became a contest of how we play it. So people are becoming very proud of their quality, and it's fine. I mean, but it became only a beauty contest. Like, what we play is like everywhere the same. And what you created there was that people came with this curiosity of what I will hear today.
yeah.
And this is fantastic. And I think there should be much more of this, of these type of concerts, creating the curiosity of what they will get.
Yeah. I mean, a scandal such as with Sacre du Printemps at the time, obviously it was also, in a different time, but nowadays would be unthinkable. Nowadays, the public is always usually very polite when a new piece is played, and they clap a little bit, and then they wait for Beethoven. But obviously 100 years ago, people only listened to contemporary music. They only went to something that was new, that they wanted to experience something. So maybe this idea of a concert as a place of special experiences is something that's leading more towards the future, rather than what you say, this beauty contest. I would like to ask you one more thing, and that's the role of festivals, because I know, I mean, you are the chief conductor of the Budapest Festival Orchestra, but you also created your own festival in Vicenza in Italy, and it's been a trend in music world that people like they prefer to go to festivals rather than to normal concerts. It has to be a happening. I think that's also underwrites a little bit this desire for special times. But what role do you see for festivals in the future, and what kind of festivals should we be making, or should we expect to happen?
this is a question I don't know the answer to, because I'm always puzzled by, if you look at museums, if you walk in any museum and then you see there is a routine, or there is people, a certain crowd, they come in, they watch the same things, and that's the norm. And then there are these exhibitions. When there is an exhibition in a town about something, and there is usually an excitement in a town. Have you seen the Chagall exhibition or the Markevich exhibition, or have you seen, there is always an excitement, and it attracts a hell of a lot of people. Now, why this is, I don't know. It's a puzzle for me, but we just have to accept it, that it attracts people. So I think there is something, there should be an excitement in a town. If there is a town, you can go to the Van Gogh Museum, wherever you walk in, but these 2 weeks there is whatever, a certain money exhibition. Wow, so if there is an event in a town that makes people excited and curious. So if a festival creates this excitement, then I think it can be a beautiful thing. I don't know more about it, but it makes sense if it creates this excitement.
It's probably also that the excitement not only has to be for the people that come from abroad, maybe to visit it or so, but the excitement must be also felt amongst the people that live there. I think that's probably an important aspect, that if they are engaged and they feel excited about what's happening, then it's more likely to be successful.
I agree.
Yeah.
It has to be an event in the city.
Yeah.
Like something which happens now in these 2 weeks. Have you seen it? Will you go, like a film festival in Cannes? If I would live in Cannes, then I would get excited during the film festival.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorites exhibitions, I just had to think, I don't know why, but one of the most memorable exhibitions I ever went to was in the town of Bergen in Norway. And they had an exhibition of erotic art. And because in Norway, people are, a lot more conservative than in Sweden, let's put it like that. And that place was completely crowded. It was so, and people, that was just in the time when internet was just breaking through. So it was, let's say, erotic images and films were not as readily available as they are now. But I found it so fascinating to see all these people, these old, I was much younger then, so people that are my age now and older, and they were, in all seriousness, they were looking like at old erotic movies from France, from around 1900, and at erotic paintings, but there was certainly a lot of excitement there.
So I think this is good example what you say, that if you find a theme which makes people curious, then that's it. Then it's a good thing. I think probably a festival which is just a Salzburg festival, I'm not sure how long it will be the important part of the artistic life. Maybe.
I think it will stay in Austria because they're so proud in Austria that if you talk to the average Austrian, then they're incredibly proud of their culture, and the Salzburg Festival is like the Wiener Philharmoniker. It's an institution. It is not there is no doubt at all in Austria about that, about the importance of it. So I think that will be fine. Maybe there are others which are based more on just a lot of money, or maybe they're not, they will not survive so easily. But anyway, and
But I
another
agree
thing,
that
and another aspect I noticed in a certain trend in music, and is the integration of humor, which is quite to me it's very valuable. I love it. You know, you have this Gudesman and Yo, and this duo with violin and piano, and you have now these two-set violin people, the two Asian boys who make fun with music, and that's also an aspect, and there are many more examples, and they also react to one another. That's also something I think we have taken ourselves too seriously, and maybe that's also an aspect which gives some perspective of growth, in a sense that there is a human aspect, not that we are these superhumans who can play Mendelssohn concerto perfectly, but that we can be funny, or that there is room to laugh in a concert. And I've seen that with you many times. So I know that that's something that doesn't come naturally to everybody, but in your case, I've certainly seen it many times.
well, I agree. I mean, humor is the best, the greatest beauty of life, because if you can look at things, I mean, enjoy the good things and then suffer of the bad things, or you can enjoy the good things and laugh about the bad things. I mean, which one is better? Of course. I mean, one has to always find the humorous aspect of anything, and then you are. It brings happiness to the people. So I usually, whenever it comes, I welcome the opportunity to have something humorous, because that's the best, of course. Yeah. I agree. But I think you do too.
Yeah. I try, but it's not always easy. I found the last time I presented a concert that was in just end of September, and then I felt that I was also suffering a little bit from this depression of you know what, and then it's quite hard. But I mean, it's a well-known fact that many great comedians have been very depressed. But anyway, I didn't manage to step out of there. So I felt a little bit, yeah, but this is actually very sad what we are doing here. So
yes, it is. But I think first of all, you also mentioned this computer idea, and I think if we are looking for the future of music, we should definitely look at the future of live music. That's a very important thing. I think the computer screen is no substitution. It's like what you said about the radio, that it actually helped the live music, but it's not a substitution. So everybody who is thinking that to solve the problem by streaming, by whatever, I don't agree. I think after this pandemic, a new type of live music will come back. Yeah. And this is what we should concentrate on.
Well, let's hope for the best. I just want to put one more a personal question to you. If you are not busy with music, what do you do in your free time? Do you have any free time?
Yes, a lot.
And what do you like doing best when you're not busy with music?
Play chess.
Okay, and you do that online or live?
Well, I do it with friends online. I try to. It's very important who you play with, because now I am around 1800 ELO points, and I would like to go up to, let's say, 2000.
Okay, but that needs a lot of practicing, I think. Like
I know.
Music.
I have to work hard. Yes.
I've lately started playing bridge again, and
Oh, that's wonderful.
I must say I enjoyed very much, and we have played together, obviously, also bridge. Yeah, to me, I prefer bridge because you do it together with somebody else. It's like I like playing chamber music. So chess is like going to war, and bridge is like playing chamber music.
Yes, very good. So let's keep playing.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Well, I thank you.
Well, I hope to see you in December, very soon, actually, here in Amsterdam. Yeah. And of course, I didn't mention it, but congratulations on your new status as official honorary guest conductor of Concertgebouw Orchestra. I'm sure you deserve many more great titles, because for me, you're one of the most important musicians in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good, Michael. Keep creative. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And then goodbye.
Bye-bye. Zooming in on music.